Welcome in one and all to today's video here on the new Cork Stats YouTube channel with your host is Big Johnny, the big dude with the big mouth from the Big Apple, coming to you worldwide from Brooklyn, New York. As always, follow me up on the Bluebird Twitter machine, MLB Moving Averages at MLB Moving AVG. Man, thank you for sticking around and checking out the new work. I'm digging the video platform. It's allowing me to use charts and kind of, provide some visualization as I try and validate my arguments. So far, we've been working our way through the top starting pitcher ranks for the upcoming MLB 2022 fantasy baseball season. Really important for me when we are trying to parse through the top of the draft list to really break out the microscope. So if I do one of these videos and the outcome doesn't sound perfect or something less than stellar, it doesn't mean I don't think these pitchers are any good. It just means I may slot them at 6 instead of 4. And those are the kind of details that I think you have to get into when you're properly trying to make these decisions. Please feel free to go back. We did Mad Max, Walker Buehler, and Zach Wheeler already. Today's subject, the topic of today's discussion, will be Sheriff Woody, Brandon Woodruff, the ace for the Milwaukee Brewers there in Beertown, USA in Middle America. Big fan of Brandon Woodruff, and with good reason. Last year's season was phenomenal. If you're new to my work, I generally like to break up teams and players into compartmentalized statistical baskets. Really, the idea just being I don't want any single stat to tip the scale. When I refer to those, I'm talking about our surface statistics, disciplinary metrics, the elevation basket, and then, of course, batted ball quality. Let's go through Brandon Woodruff's season last year. It was phenomenal. 31 starts, 179 and a third innings, 2.56 ERA, the whip below 1, best of his career. Now, I want to stop short there before maybe even go into the fact the FIP was below 3, xFIP at 3.05, Sierra 3.31. All of those excellent, firmly in the top like 10 percentile among starting pitchers. But where I wanted to get to when referring to surface stats is going beyond the general, right? I want to go beyond the norm. People generally refer to ERA and whip. And for me, any 2 points can make a line. So I like to look for a third point in my surface stats to see if I can either validate or invalidate the initial assertion, right? The initial assumption that we have when we look at those numbers. I like to use OPS, very hard to fool. And sometimes, again, that third point will either make more or less sense and a reason to investigate. So the OPS at 670 last season actually is a bit high for those input stats, but again, backed up with the low FIP and xFIP, lots of reasons to get behind Brandon Woodruff here. He was just excellent. The disciplinary basket, phenomenal across the board. 30% K to only 6% walk. A 24% K minus walk in a world where 20 is excellent. Swinging strike rate up over 16. CSW near 31. His chase rate, best of his career, near 35. A few ticks above average. And his in-zone contact rate below 81. The reason those two stats are so important as a pair is because Woodruff can get you to chase something bad outside of the zone, but could also beat you in the zone, something very important. When pitchers only rely on chase and they fall behind, batters know not to offer. Woodruff can beat you in the zone. We're going to get into just how he does that in a little bit. Really nothing left to be desired so far through the first 2 baskets. You get into elevation, keeps the ball down on the ground more than 42% of the time. The fly ball rate down around 32. Again, nothing more to ask for. Into the batted ball metrics we go. Hard hit rates on both of the 2 pillars of accounting. That's Fangraphs and StatCast. Both are below 35. Again, I like to dive into the nuance and give people the reasons why, if you hear or see hard hit rates being quoted differently, the reason is because the accounting is different. So on Fangraphs, they use baseball information solutions. There is a subjective human element there, whereas StatCast uses a raw 95-mile-an-hour metric. People often ask me which is best. The answer is both. So both of those metrics really strong for Woodruff, so he can get you to chase, beat you in the zone, keep the ball down, and he's hard to get a hold of, right? All the characteristics of an ace from last year's point of view. Barrel rate below 6, the blast rate below 3, WOBA at 289 with the ex-WOBA better than that at 280, WOBA-con at 367, expected WOBA on contact better than that at 356, all with less than a home run per 9. Really, again, not a chink in the armor, not a hole in the game. What we're here to dive just a little bit deeper. Last year's stats does not the future portend. So we want to look at how he gets there and just how he does it. In my handicapping work, which is generally behind the paywall, which is why I'm really digging this new venture, I get to put all my stuff out for the public. There's a term that I coined, I guess, being split proof for a starting pitcher. Now, generally what I would mean is they provide a sub 300 WOBA on the home, on the road, against lefties, and against righties. When we looked at a player like Max and now at Woodruff, we have to come up with a new category, the super split proof starting pitcher. And as you can see posted, a sub 260 WOBA across the board. Lefty, righty, home, and away. And all of this is with a better than 4 ERA in September and October, which I think was more of a factor of coming off of the short season. We've seen that happen to a few pitchers. You know, he was just great. The game log looked great. Another stat that I developed is called a money start. I believe quality starts are flawed pretty easily. We could do this real quick, right? 6 innings and 3 earned runs. 6 innings pitch is a 50% distance metric. Not very good. Same could be said for 4.5 ERA, 3 runs over 6 innings. So 6 innings and 3 earned runs, just not good enough to define a single start as far as excellence goes. So I derived the money start. So it's at least 7 innings with no more than 2 earned runs. And those are really the starts that we want to circle. Woodruff did that 7 times out of 30 last year, had 9 Ks or more in 8 of 30, went 6 innings or more 22 times, and went more than 100 pitches 11 times last year. Add that up with a good bullpen, and it's really hard to get away from Woodruff. Let's dive on into really what I noticed about him, and it's an evolution in the pitch mix. Some people just try and quote pitch mix as is and as a reason for change, and I think there's some nuance there. So when we look at Woodruff, we see the use for the sinker and the curve increasing, while the usage of the fastball and the slider was decreasing. And then to expand even more, and this is where I like to get into because I really do think it's all about the details in this one, is it wasn't just a change for the sake of change. We saw a change towards a more targeted approach, meaning individual pitchers are being deployed more against a single-handed hitter. And then when we investigate that, we find out it's really, really efficient. So Woody didn't just change the pitch mix. He began to get more targeted, and they're super efficient. Let's check out exactly what I'm talking about. He started throwing the changeup to only lefties, getting them down and away. 14% use to a 342 X-Slug and a 41% whiff rate. That's my kind of personal triple slash for an individual pitch. That's your use rate, how often it's deployed, X-Slug to describe contact, and then whiff rate, the all-important swing and miss. So he started using the changeup only to lefties. In fact, I think he'd been doing that, but when you'd make the next move, like the slider, which started only going to righties, also down and away, where he likes to work, very effective pitch as well. 9% use, 350 X-Slug, 31 whiff. But remember, the 9% usage is a bit misleading because he doesn't really offer it to lefties. So that was kind of where I was going with people just trying to quote pitch mix without diving into the directed usage. So we've seen not just an evolution, but an efficient one at that. You see the same hand side changeup mirror the curveball, and that's so important by adding that deceptive element. And to expand even more, they have an opposite break. So you get a mirror, there's a visual deception, and then the physical deception, because the pitches are confusing to look at, and then have an opposite break, diving to different parts of the plate. That changeup goes down and away, same hand side, backdoor break. The curveball just drops off the table, and it has worked so very well for him. And of course, it's all complemented by the fastball. If you watch the other videos, that's one of the places for a pitcher that I really like to direct my analysis. The efficacy of a fastball and the trend in which it's heading is something that I look for production in the future. And the fastball for Woodruff is an extremely strong part of his game. If you think back to the chart I showed you before with overall usage, yes, the overall usage is down, but the efficiency is way, way up. And that always begins with velocity. You could see it here. It's undeniable. Velo is up year over year. But speed is not the only characteristic of a fastball. we generally like to see it flatten. And now this is kind of counterintuitive because growing up, we've always heard, oh, a bad fastball is straight as an arrow. As we begun to learn more about the ball in flight and exactly how that affects production, we now know a flat fastball is phenomenal. Those are what are referred to as rising fastballs. Of course, no fastball can rise against gravity. That would be impossible. But it doesn't drop as much as the field. And that's what we've seen with Woodruff. Again, it's just undeniable. Look at the drop in vertical movement year over year. As the fastball has flattened with increased velocity, we have seen what? The swinging strike rate pop. So again, this is not just a matter of just velo or shape. It's a combination of all these things. We got velo, we got shape, and that subsequently took the swinging strike rate with it, especially when it comes to being located up in the zone where Woody likes to use the four-seamer. So he has not just shown production, people. It's more than that. It's not just production at all, okay? It's growth, and that word that I used, evolution. And I think in conclusion, that is really where we want to plant our flag. Beyond seeing production, we've seen distance, but we're seeing moves being made strategically as far as deployment, maximizing Betts' pitches against the correct handed hitter that has taken Woodruff to the next level. So I would have to say he's right now probably SP6 or 7. That is fully validated. I like Woodruff so much after this deep dive. I would say you could pass on that first round starting pitcher, get him in the second, and you have a guy that could end up as SP1. I like him more than Buehler in a vacuum, maybe even more than Wheeler. That would be an interesting one, apples to apples. I have a feeling as I think about it, it probably come down to the bullpen I mentioned before. Woodruff gives you depth and has a very good bullpen. If the offense picks up a bit next year, you'd be looking for even more wins in the W column, which of course are wonky, but they are a category. So thank you for sticking around with this video and picking up what I'm putting down as we deep dive into Sheriff Woody for those Milwaukee Brewers. I think we are looking at a perennial Cy Young. He should have a phenomenal season, and you will not be disappointed drafting him as your SP1 in the early second round in those 2022 fantasy drafts. Hope you enjoyed the video. Get up in the comments. Please subscribe. It really helps so much to get this video recommended. And make sure to check out all my work at MLB Moving AVG on Twitter. So from Big John, everybody, enjoy your day. And remember, when you work this hard, it feels a lot less like luck. Peace.